The Battle of Pungdo or Fengtao was the first naval battle of the First Sino-Japanese War. It took place on 25 July 1894 offshore of Asan, Chungcheong, Namdo, Korea, between cruisers of the Imperial Japanese Navy of Meiji Japan and components of the Beiyang Fleet of the Empire of China. Background: both King China and Japan had been intervening in Korea against the Donghak Peasant Revolution. While China tried to maintain her suzerain relationship with Korea, Japan wanted to increase her sphere of influence. Both countries had already had troops in Korea as requested by different factions within the Korean government. Chinese troops from the Beiyang Army, stationed in Asan, south of Seoul, numbering 3,000 men in early July, could be effectively supplied only by sea through the Bay of Asan. This presented a situation very similar to the British position at the beginning of the Yorktown campaign during the American Revolution. The Japanese plan was to blockade the entrance of the Bay of Asan, while her land forces moved overland to encircle the Beiyang Army detachment in Asan before reinforcements arrived by sea. Some amongst the Chinese Beiyang Fleet Command were aware of this dangerous situation and had advocated either the withdrawal of troops further north, to Pyongyang, or the sailing the entire Beiyang Fleet to Incheon as a deterrent against Japanese intentions. However, the Qing leadership was split between Viceroy Li Hongzhang's basic instinct to protect his fleet from danger and the Guangxu Emperor's demand for a stronger stand. As a compromise, the detachment at Asan was to be reinforced for the time being under escort by ships already on station in Korean waters. Inaction paralyzed the Chinese command on the eve of war. The battle. According to Chinese battle records, the Chinese ships, cruiser Jiyuan and gunboat Kwang Yi, in port in Asan since the 23rd of July, left on the morning of the 25th of July and were on their way to rendezvous with the troop transport ship Kaohsiung in Tsao Kiang en route from Tianjin. At 7:45 a.m., near Pungdo, a small island, these vessels had steamed out of Asan in order to meet another Chinese gunboat, the Tsao Kiang, which was convoying the transport Kaohsiung toward Asan. The two Chinese vessels did not return the salute of the Japanese ships as required under international maritime regulations, and when the Japanese turned to the southwest, the Chinese opened fire. The battle occurred at close range, and Jiyuan took severe damage and began to lose steering control, but one of the German military advisors aboard, Hoffmann, managed to jury-rig a tiller under fire, and the vessel was able to maneuver. The timely arrival of the gunboat Kwang Yi distracted Nanoa, and Yoshino and Jiyuan used the opportunity to break off the engagement and escaped. Kwang Yi was stranded on some rocks, and its gunpowder magazine exploded. Yoshino pursued Jiyuan, but for uncertain reasons was unable to catch the slower vessel. In the meantime, Tsao Kiang and the transport Kaohsiung, which was flying a British civil ensign and conveying some 1,200 Beiyang Army and stores, had the unfortunate timing of appearing on the scene. At approximately 09:00 hours, Kaohsiung was ordered to follow the Japanese cruiser Nanoa to the main Japanese squadron. After a formal protest citing the neutrality of the British flag, the English captain, Thomas Ryder Galsworthy, agreed. However, the Chinese soldiers on board revolted, and threatened to kill the crew unless Galsworthy took them back to China. After 4 hours of negotiation, when the Beiyang troops were momentarily distracted, Galsworthy and the British crew jumped overboard and attempted to swim to the Nanoa, but were fired upon by the Chinese. Most of the sailors were killed, but Galsworthy and 2 crewmen were rescued by the Japanese. Nanoa then opened fire on the Kaohsiung, sinking her and her mutineers. A few on board escaped by swimming and was rescued by a local fisherman. The first officer of the Kaohsiung gave an interview to The Times on 25 October 1894 stating that the Chinese were distracted by a torpedo launched from the Nanawa, which failed to explode, and that he was only able to jump overboard after the Nanawa started shelling the Kaohsiung. While in the water, he was fired upon and wounded by the Chinese, but was rescued by the Japanese along with other European survivors. He also stated that Nanawa sunk 2 lifeboats full of Chinese troops. Only 3 out of the 43 crew of the Kaohsiung survived the sinking. Chinese casualties were approximately 1,100, including more than 800 from the troop transport Kaohsiung alone, against none for the Japanese. Some 300 Chinese troops survived by swimming to nearby islands. At 1400 hours, the cruiser Akitsushima intercepted TSA Okiang, which was quickly captured. Aftermath of the battle. The battle had a direct impact on the fighting on land. The reinforcements with 12 cannons on board Kaohsiung and other military supplies on board TSA Okiang failed to reach Asan, and the outnumbered and isolated Beiyang Army detachment in Asan was attacked and defeated in the subsequent Battle of Seongwan 4 days later. Formal declarations of war came only on August 1, 1894, after the Battle of Seongwan. Nanawa was under the command of Captain Togo Hayashiro. The owners of the Kaohsiung, Jardin, Matheson and Company, better known for its role in the opium trade with China, protested the action in the British press, and demanded compensation from the Japanese government. The public response to Japan having fired upon a vessel flying the British flag almost led to a diplomatic incident between Japan and Great Britain. Japan also came under criticism for having failed to make any effort to rescue any of the Chinese survivors of the sinking. However, calls for Japan to pay an indemnity ceased after British jurists ruled that the action was in conformity with international law regarding the treatment of mutineers. The sinking was also specifically cited by the Chinese government as one of the treacherous actions by the Japanese in their formal declaration of war against Japan. One major result of this battle was the introduction of Western rules of maritime prize into Japanese law. On August 21, 1894, a new Japanese law provided for the establishment of a Japanese prize court at Sasebo to judge on such matters. In 2000, a Korean salvage company tried to salvage the wreck of Kaohsiung, claiming to investors that the ship contained a treasure of gold and silver bullion. The wreckage was destroyed in the operation, and only a few artifacts of little monetary value were discovered.